It becomes information. Criticism doesn't sting. It becomes insight or noise, and you learn to tell the difference. Praise doesn't. It simply passes through, and betrayal no longer breaks you because you're not living in a way that relies on others to hold you together. That's what makes you untouchable. Not because nothing happens to you, but because nothing outside of you decides who you are. But don't mistake this for isolation. This kind of strength invites connection, but only the kind that respects your boundaries. It allows for love, but not at the cost of self-abandonment. It opens the door, but it does not remove the threshold. People can walk with you, but not through you. And the ones who understand that, they'll stay. The rest will leave, and you'll learn not to chase. Because peace doesn't come from the presence of people. It comes from the absence of noise. And noise comes in many forms. Gossip, doubt, pressure to perform, pressure to explain, pressure to shrink. That's why this mindset matters. It doesn't just protect your peace, it preserves your purpose. And purpose without boundaries dissolves into performance. You forget why you started. You start making decisions from fear, from fatigue, from the need to prove something. That's what happens when the fortress is weak. You become reactive. But when the walls are strong, you become strategic, intentional, rooted. Epictetus said, "No person is free who is not master of themselves." That mastery begins in the mind, in the discipline to hold your ground when the world pushes, in the wisdom to say no, not with anger but with certainty, in the courage to walk away from anything that tempts you to betray your own integrity. That is the essence of the fortress. It doesn't control others. It controls your response to them. And in that control, there is freedom. A mind like that doesn't need applause. It doesn't need reassurance. It doesn't even need to be understood. It just needs to be aligned with truth, with purpose, with something deeper than the moment. And once you build that alignment, you'll start to see things for what they are, not what you hoped they would be. That clarity may cost you relationships, opportunities, comfort, but it will give you something far more valuable. Consistency, direction, inner power. And as that power grows, you begin to move differently. Not faster, not louder, just with more precision. You no longer feel the need to explain yourself to everyone. You choose where your energy goes. You become less accessible to drama and more available to purpose. You let go of the need to be liked and embrace the freedom to be real. And with every boundary held, your mind becomes quieter. Your heart becomes lighter. Your path becomes clearer. That's the fortress. It's not a wall that keeps the world out. It's a foundation that keeps your strength in. It doesn't make you hard. It makes you whole. It doesn't make you distant. It makes you discerning. And when the storms come, as they always do, you don't fall apart. You don't break. You remain still, clear, untouched. Not because nothing tried to shake you, but because you finally built something that nothing could move. Betrayal doesn't begin with a knife. It begins with trust, with comfort, with the soft moments where your guard is down, and you believe just for a second that someone sees you and would never harm you. That illusion is the real danger. Because betrayal doesn't come from strangers. It doesn't shout from a distance. It whispers from the seat beside you, from the friend you called family, from the colleague you mentored, from the one who knew the way in. Not by force, but by invitation. And once you've been betrayed, not once but several times, you start to realize something that cuts deeper than any act itself. Betrayal is a pattern, not a surprise. It's not always malicious. Sometimes it's born of weakness, of jealousy, of desperation, but the outcome is always the same. You're left holding the broken pieces of something you thought was solid. And the instinct is to ask why, to replay every conversation, to blame yourself for not seeing it coming. But the truth is, the clues were always there. Subtle, overlooked, dismissed in the name of friendship. That's how betrayal always works. It hides behind familiarity. It blends in with loyalty until the moment it doesn't. And by the time you realize it, it's already done its damage. You learn quickly that closeness isn't the same as alignment. That just because someone walks with you doesn't mean they're walking for the same reasons. Some walk beside you because they believe in where you're going. Others walk beside you to see how far they can follow before they push you off the path and take your place. And it's painful, not just because of the loss, but because of the clarity it forces on you. You begin to see the small ways you ignored your instincts, the tiny moments you brushed off their envy, the time you thought they'd never do that to me only to find out they already were. And here's where most people go wrong. They become cynical. They shut everyone out. They let betrayal harden them into suspicion. But the wiser path isn't isolation, it's discernment. It's learning to observe without always reacting, to listen between the lines, to trust, not blindly, but with awareness. Because you don't need to expect betrayal from everyone. You just need to stop being surprised when it comes from someone you once let close. The Stoics never told us to expect perfection. They told us to expect human nature. And human nature left unchecked will always serve itself. First, Seneca once said, "The man who has anticipated the coming of troubles takes away their power when they arrive." And that's what this awareness gives you. Not bitterness, but strength. Not fear, but foresight. You stop handing out key to your heart just because someone smiles. You stop sharing your deepest plans with people who haven't proven they know how to hold your silence with respect. You stop offering loyalty in advance and start letting time reveal who's really for you. What you start to notice is that betrayal always has a rhythm. It follows the same sequence. Intimacy, comfort, subtle shifts, then the break. And if you pay attention, you'll catch the signs before the break happens. A certain look when you succeed, a subtle distance when you need support, a shift in language, less we, more me. It's not paranoia, it's pattern recognition. And the longer you live with clarity, the easier it is to see. But what makes betrayal so destructive isn't just the act, it's what it does to your belief in connection. It makes you question the good ones. It makes you hold back with people who have done nothing wrong. And if you're not careful, it poisons your view of loyalty altogether. That's why the fortress of the mind matter. That's why the filters you build aren't cold, they're necessary. Not because everyone is out to get you, but because not everyone is meant to go where you're going. And some people, even those you love, will try to sabotage you just to keep you close because your growth makes their stagnation unbearable. There's a quiet violence in betrayal that doesn't come from anger, it comes from comfort. The person who betrays you doesn't do it with malice in their eyes. They do it with the belief that you'll recover, that you'll understand, that they had no choice. They justify it. They reframe the story in their favor, and that's what makes it sting. The absence of accountability. The betrayal is compounded by the fact that they believe they're still the victim. But you don't have to carry that weight. You don't have to seek justice from the person who fractured your trust. You don't have to win the argument or even confront them. You just have to decide. This chapter ends here. No more energy, no more access, no more wondering if it could have been different because it wasn't. And the only way forward is forward without them. Carl Jung once observed that shame is a soul-leeing emotion. And betrayal often carries shame, not just for what they did, but for what you didn't see. You blame yourself. You feel foolish, exposed. But shame is only powerful when it goes unexamined. The moment you step back and see betrayal for what it is, not a sign of your weakness, but a lesson in clarity, you begin to take back your strength. You don't become harder, you become wiser, sharper, more tuned into the silent language people speak when they think you're not watching. Eventually, you'll be grateful, not for the pain, but for the precision it gave you. For the way it taught you to protect your peace without apology, for how it carved a line between those who say they're loyal and those who show it. You'll see that every betrayal was a kind of brutal grace, stripping away the illusions you clung to, exposing the cracks in your foundation, and giving you the chance to rebuild, not with bitterness, but with discernment. And that discernment becomes your strength. You stop explaining your choice. You stop oversharing your dream. You let people earn the right to stand beside you, not through word, but through consistency, through presence, through how they act when you're not useful to them. That's how you know. Not when things are good, not when the path is easy, but when silence falls, when your back turned, when your light threatened to outshine theirs. So you become intentional. You keep your circle small, not because you're afraid, but because you've seen what happens when it's too wide. You speak less, not because you lack trust, but because you've learned the value of holding some truth for yourself. You expect less, not because you're jaded, but because you're done giving more than people are willing to give back. And through it all, you hold your center. You don't let betrayal define you. You let it refine you into someone who walks with strength.